Hello everyone, and welcome to Now You're Playing with Power, a Nintendo podcast. That is the official title, and this is episode 27. My name is NBZ, and I am here, joined as per the usual, my co-host. He's been giggling his face off, but he's ready.
God, don't get me started again.
He's ready to take on the challenge of talking about video games. A hard, tough challenge indeed. It's Bally. How you doing, Bally?
It is tough, yes. I'm here. Thank you, NBZ.
You exist. You are here, yes.
I've now moved back to London.
Oh, look at that.
Yes.
In the city of dreams, as they call it, right?
That's what they
say.
City of being on a tube for 2 hours every day.
Oh, man, it's a tough time, I tell you. When
Yeah.
I was on the tubes, it was... It's a cramped environment. It's
But if you are on the tube, then you should be listening to this podcast because it is a great time for listening to podcasts.
Shout outs to people on the tube right now in your morning commute. I hope you have a good day.
You should look up and give a high five and then see who else on the tube is giving a high five, and then you'll know Now You're Playing with Power fan as well.
Obviously, because that's totally going to happen.
Because you're totally going to start your podcast at the same time.
Right. Okay, well, with all that preamble aside, I guess we're going to start talking about video games. So, Bally, how about you let us know what we're going to be talking about today?
We are going to be talking about what we've been playing. We have more of your emails, and then we are going to talk about the Nintendo Direct that just happened, because there was quite a bit of news.
You say just happened, but by the time this podcast goes out, it's going to be a little bit delayed. So I guess some late reactions, as it were.
Some late
to
reactions
Nintendo,
for mainly announcements for 2015, which is really exciting.
Yeah, some good stuff happening there. So we'll cover that. We'll get our thoughts and opinions. But before we do any of that, we have video games to talk about. So Bally, why didn't you kick things off with a game that both of us have been digging, might I say?
Oh, you gave it away, but that game is Shovel Knight. And
yes,
I've been playing the Wii U version of Shovel Knight. So I currently don't have a television in London. It's at a friend's house. I still need to get my HD TV back. So I played the entirety of this game with just the gamepad. And
it's interesting, actually, because I did a similar thing with Mega Man 2, and I think that, there are a lot of parallels that can be drawn here between these two games, and certainly a game like this doesn't really suffer from being viewed on the gamepad only. I'm sure it looked great on the big screen, but I'm sure it held up fine on the gamepad.
Yeah, I mean, had I had my screen, I would have played it with my Pro Controller and the D-pad on that controller, because I think both the Pro Controller and the gamepad obviously have the same D-pad, and I think it's the best D-pad that I've ever played with. So yeah, I mean, I played a game like Super Metroid. I played almost all of that with the Pro Controller on the HD TV, and it looked great, and I enjoyed playing that. But yeah, when you don't have a TV, I was happily playing this with just the gamepad, and it looked and played amazingly. And I was initially on the fence about buying this game. I was kind of like, I've been buying so many games recently, I should really save a bit of money, but you were like, yeah, I'm just gonna get this day one, and I thought, well, okay, I'll get it day one as well, whatever, because it was just so hyped.
Yeah, and I kind of made the decision to get it day one back in the summer when I thought it was going to be released. So I guess my little story about Shovel Knight is I was on the plane back from somewhere we were on holiday to, and I was listening to NVC, the Nintendo podcast from IGN, and they had Colin Moriarty on there who had reviewed the game, and he was being so positive about it, and I'd heard such great things from other people. I got off the plane, I tweeted at Colin Moriarty, and I said, is this, I said, are you going to be on the wait a second, I fucked that up. That happened beforehand. I said, are you going to be on the podcast to discuss it? And he said, yes. I said, okay, well, I'm going to be buying it when I get home. And I get home, and I realized, well, shit, it's not actually on the eShop. And that began the long wait, shall we call it, for the European release of this game.
When did it come out in North America?
It was around July time.
July.
Yeah, middle of the summer.
So a good solid 3 or 4 months. Yeah, it
it
has been long.
Yeah,
Um,
and it's especially annoying because the Steam version was available worldwide from day one. So I could have actually played this a long time ago. I have access to, PC and laptop. I have a 360 controller, which I could easily have played it with. But I really did want to wait for the Nintendo version, and I guess the reason for that is because this game is so tied to Nintendo in the way that it represents those old classic games, and just the things it's a love letter to made much more sense to have it on a system that was made by
yeah.
them. So that's kind of why I held
And it
out.
was
And
really, really nice that it did come out on those Nintendo systems, and that it wasn't just on Steam, like you were saying. And yeah, I can't think of other games that are like that have just come out on Wii U, 3DS, and Steam.
Yeah, there are a few. I mean, SteamWorld Dig is one of those, but yeah, it doesn't happen often. But it's really cool and it makes a lot of sense. So you play the Wii U version. I play the 3DS one, which is kind of nice because it gives us
Yeah.
little differences to talk about with the game. Let's just kick it off with just talking about the gameplay and all that stuff. So Shovel Knight is a 2D action platformer where you play the role of a knight, and his main weapon is of course a shovel. So it's kind of melee focused in its combat, and it controls really well. It controls super tight and does remind me a lot of Mega Man. But the one thing I will say, off the start, I was kind of a little bit down on the movement speed. I thought that Shovel Knight was a bit too slow for my
And there's
liking.
no sprint button, we should also say, yeah.
Right, there's no run button. Obviously, because they wanted to emulate the NES, they were only really utilizing two buttons for the main things for jump and attack, so there wasn't any room to be able to do that. And that did kind of rub me the wrong way initially, but it does make sense when you consider the context and the design around it. Did you find there was a trouble with that on your
I
end, Bally, at all?
liked it because I think the second you add a run button, it becomes an entirely different game. I think associating a run with a jump is so Mario, and that idea of momentum. And in some of the hardest Mario stages, there are genuinely gaps that you can only get across with a run and jump. And I liked how the game focused more on, I guess it would be the timing of jumps and things like that, and timing in relation to enemies.
Sure, and I do like that you can use the shovel when you're in the air to point downwards like a
Hmm.
pogo stick, right? And you can bounce on top of enemies. And that does, to a degree, solve that momentum problem when you're going across pits. You can use that to, speed yourself up and maneuver yourself around with quite a bit of nuance, I found.
And genuinely jumping on an enemy by pogoing on them and then getting across a gap, or onto a bubble and getting across a gap. That mechanic is used throughout the game, and I never got sick of it really. And they teach you that right at the start.
No, it just has a really satisfying feeling to it. Yeah, and I actually made a video of Shovel Knight where I was pointing out that there's a lot of like little secret areas that you're able to get to, but you are only able to get to them if you get the timing correctly on the pogo jump. So you have to jump on an enemy, which will give you the height to get on top of a high platform, which you otherwise wouldn't be able to reach. And then as a result, you find a secret area, get a bunch of gold, and sometimes find like some music or some extra hidden item. And that is the kind of design sensibility that I am really appreciative of. It's similar, I feel, to environmental puzzle solving in Zelda, where you're using the stuff around you in a way that is different to what you ordinarily do. Because usually you just jump on an enemy to kill it, but in this way you're using it for platforming purposes, and I just think that's fantastic, honestly.
Yeah, I can't
So.
think of. I think there are a few secrets in like Mario Brothers that do involve jumping on enemies to get to areas, maybe, but I don't think it's quite as obvious as this game.
Yeah, it's not telegraphed as much, and certainly I don't feel like there is an optimal reward in Mario games for those kind of things. The best you do is like a one up, but really the way this game is designed is that you want to collect as much gold as possible, and that kind of feeds into the aspect of getting upgrades, your health, your magic, and it all really just it feeds this loop, which makes a lot of sense.
And that's the thing about the gold in this game, is that that's effectively that's your life meter. That's what you, because you're using your gold to buy power-ups, upgrades, weapons, and ultimately you do want to keep that gold. But the more you die, the more money you lose.
Right, and that's a really interesting design philosophy because there is a punishment for death, but it isn't necessarily going to hurt you every time. Because you do have the option to go back afterwards and collect the money that is dropped. So basically, every time you die, you drop 3 bags of money, and if you're able to get back to that point and collect them without dying again, then you will retain it all, and you'll be able to kind of be back to the place that you were. But of course, there are going to be the times where you will screw up on your way to your corpse place, and you will die, and you will permanently lose the money from before, and it kind of gets into this loop where you sometimes are not able to get back there every time, and it separates the good players from the great ones.
It's a nice loop, but it is easily avoidable. So every time I had a lot of money, I would go and spend it all. I'd spend as much money as possible, and then enter a level. And then on particularly some of the tougher levels, I knew that even if I die over and over and over and over again, I can only go to 0 money. There's no chance. I might go into a level with 100, 200 gold, which is hardly anything in this game, and know that that's the maximum I can possibly lose.
Right. It's only really a threat when you're at a high value, and that's when you're kind of playing with fire, because you don't want to... It's kind of this back and forth, because some of the items and weaponry cost a lot, like 8 to 10,000, some of the high-level stuff, and you may be around 6k, and you're going into a level, and you want to get some, but you're also worried that you'll drop all the way down, so you are kind of, there's this back and forth with it. The one thing I'll mention about death, which I feel can be a little bit bullshit, is when you die in pits sometimes, the way that the money drops is placed in a way that it is literally impossible for you to get back to it without falling in the pit again. And, that's something that may have been avoided by some programming as to where, the money pits would, or the money bags would land, which, that would have been nice, but I do see it as a little bit of an oversight because, you could mess up once and then have no way of getting back. And I'll be honest, pits are a pretty big way of dying in this game.
Because your health bar is it starts off at 5, I think, and it can go.
It starts at 4.
At 4, and you can expand it right up to 10. So you find that other than at certain bosses, I found that I was rarely dying through contact with enemies, and most of the time I was being either jumping into a pit, or I got bumped into a pit by an enemy, or landed on spikes, which are also insta-death. So I felt like those factors were killing me an awful lot more, and
yeah, totally. There is that real Mega Man design again. I'm going to invoke Mega Man a lot here because it does remind me of those games so much. Is when you're kind of about to jump on a platform and an enemy rushes forward, it'll damage you a tiny bit, but the knockback will knock you into the pit, and that is where you need to be really careful and kind of think before you jump a lot of the time. So it does encourage a lot of careful judging of
I guess from
going.
death we could talk about the checkpoint system in this game.
Sure. How about you cover that, Bally?
So all the levels have a varying number of checkpoints. I found it ranged between 4 and 6, I want to say. There were some longer levels,
generally.
and sometimes it felt like there were too many checkpoints, and other times it was like, oh my god, I've just played so much and died. And like, it was that traditional 2D platform thing where you've passed the checkpoint, and you're striving to get to the next checkpoint, but you just keep dying. I found certainly in the latter levels there was an awful lot of times where I just kept going back from dying, and just I think they are well spaced out.
Yeah, and I think a really smart thing about them is after you have died and gone back to an area, the way I was playing it anyway, when I was going through, I was trying to get as much gold as possible. So I was finding every secret area, killing every enemy, just trying to accumulate all of this to build up my total. And the nice thing is that when you go back through, you don't have to collect that money again. So you can essentially speed run your way back to where you died, because you're not focusing and you're not spending as much time in each area. You are just basically dashing past everything because you don't need to collect the gold. You already have it, essentially.
Oh.
So I thought that was
pretty sure I
pretty
replayed
clever.
a level and I picked up all the gold again.
I think if you go out the level and come back into it, that's what happens.
Oh,
But
okay.
from checkpoint
Yeah.
to checkpoint, no, you don't have to. It retains that stuff, which is great and really smart. But yeah, there is that reward, risk reward.
Risk push your luck, I
Yeah,
guess,
if you want
is
to, you
a
can
good way.
destroy the checkpoints, which means that obviously you won't have them active anymore, but you will add a nice amount of gold to your total. So there's that playing with fire aspect again that they're bringing into it, and it also allows people to have different play styles. Honestly, if you find the game too easy and you want to challenge yourself, destroy all the checkpoints and give yourself the challenge.
Yeah.
It's there to be exploited. So.
And that thing, destroying the checkpoints for money, I found doesn't actually work if you replay levels. It's only the first time you go through a level, because I replayed the first level just to grind a bit of gold at one point, and I wanted to destroy the checkpoints but was unable to because I guess I'd already done the level.
Oh, interesting. Huh. So it really is a first time, just take your luck and go for it, I guess.
Yeah, which is reckless.
Yeah, yes.
And yeah, I do think for me personally, this game was way too challenging to ever merit doing that. I just didn't have
Yeah.
the confidence and patience, I guess, to risk it all on destroying the checkpoint.
Yeah, definitely. So I think going from checkpoints leads well into talking about some of the bosses of the game, because you always get a checkpoint before the boss, and they always make sure you have a wall chicken. Another nice kind of retro reference, the wall chickens, of course, from Castlevania, which give you a lot of health back, so that you're always really ready and set to go with bosses. I think the nice thing about them is that you don't need to really worry about death a lot in those fights, because you're always going back to the same area, and getting the money bags is really a trivial thing, but it can get you hurt in the short term if you're trying to grab them at the start of the battle and maybe getting hit a couple of times when you don't need to be. But it's nice that it's set up in that way, I feel.
I think the bosses are the best bit of this game by
Overall, really, yeah.
quite some way, actually. I just, they were the bits where I'd have, even though I wasn't very good at them, compared to the levels, and I died the most on them, I think they were so much more enjoyable than the rest of the game. Don't get me wrong, the rest of the game is amazing, but I just think that these bosses are a tier above that. I think they were just... How do you describe it? I think it was partly the theming. I love the idea that there's all these different types of knights, and then the theming of their level. For example, there's like a submarine guy, and he shoots like anchors out of his arms.
Right, yeah.
And his theme is like he's a treasure chest or something. It's quite weird. He's Treasure Knight.
Treasure
I think
Knight,
it's
yeah.
called. So so I found him one of the harder ones actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, just really cool, really great sprite animations, I should also say. Oh, that's a text message. And that's the first time I've not silenced my phone. And again, oh, never mind. But yeah, I just loved the sprites on the bosses as well, and just I didn't even realize that the bosses were a big bit of this game before buying the game. So when they started showing up, and then they got progressively more and more epic, and also the final boss is amazing. I thought it was a great fight. I was just really blown away by them, perhaps because they were the most surprising bit.
Yeah, and let's once again invoke Mega Man, because it is a trope that has been taken from that series of theming levels and then having a boss specifically based around it with its own unique move set and all that good stuff. I found them fantastic. They were just so well designed, and the variety of moves that they could pull off and really pushed you into a corner. And it did have that pseudo Zelda figuring things out, but it's a lot more action based. It's more about twitch movement and being able to utilize a combination of jumping on their heads and getting in a quick hit here and there, but also trying to conserve your own energy. If you go in there whole hog, then most likely you're going to die before they do, because generally your HP is lower and you can't take hits as well. But they were a fantastic part, and they again, going along with the idea of theming, there's another type of theme in this game which is particularly worthy of note, and that is, of course, the music themes for each level. So let's talk about the music, the 8-bit soundtrack from one Jake Kaufman, who wrote the score for this game, and in my opinion, did a outstanding job, an absolutely outstanding job.
It just ties the whole game together because it's what makes the game feel epic.
Right.
Because visually it looks great. It's that sort of fantasy, almost jokey, arty kind of style. But by the end, it's more of a serious game than it is for the laughs game. Like, it does feel quite serious, I felt at the end.
Yeah.
I don't know about you.
It's definitely it builds up the epic and the intensity for sure. Yeah. No doubt about that.
Yeah, and I thought some of the end game music and obviously the main theme and my favorite, bar none, has to be Hall of the Usurper King. I think that's what it's called.
Yeah, I think it's King Knight stage, which is that theme.
Yes, King Knight stage. And the great thing about this game is that you can collect these songs on the stages. You can collect song sheets, I think.
Yeah, note sheets, whatever.
And then you return them to the guy in the town. You get money for them as well, which is great. And then anytime you want, you can just go to that guy in the town and he will play you any song in the game that you've collected. And I managed to get Hall of the Usurper King very early on my playthrough.
Yeah, well, I believe it's because that is one of the first stages you go to. So.
Yeah, exactly. So I was very happy very early.
Yeah, and when you go to the bard, you can get him to start playing it, and it will continue to play as long as you're still in the town. So you can go around, do your shopping, and then go and find some other people, try and find some secrets, and it will continue playing while you're there. The town's definitely reminiscent of Zelda 2 for me, and I think that's what they're going for. That kind of lots of people running around doing their own thing. You can talk to them if you want. Another thing, I guess, you want to talk about maybe story and dialogue. It's not very present very heavily in this game, but it is. It's
there's
there.
A bit, but yeah, it's a nice amount. When I went to the first town, I thought, this is fun, but I really prefer the levels, and I really hope that there's not loads more towns, because that just wouldn't be much fun, and there actually isn't. There's only like one main town, and then there's a sort of mini town, which I never really understood what the purpose of it was.
Well, I think it's for them to really break things out in terms of like the shops and stuff, because you have the armory and everything in the second town where you get the upgrades for your shield and you get the armor upgrades, as opposed to the first town where you're just building your
shield?
No, not your shield, your armor, your shovel. Sorry,
I didn't upgrade my armor. Well, who do you speak to?
Well, okay, so you probably didn't check this out, but I have lots of different abilities for my shovel. Like when you're at full health, you do like a Link style sword zap, which goes along the ground. You can have a charge up move with your shield.
And do you just pay for these?
Yeah, you just pay for them, and that's a lot of what my money went towards, was getting these. There are 3 upgrades for your shovel, and you can also.
Who do you speak to? Who is it?
It's in the second town. It's in the airship, and you go up the ladder, the first ladder on the first screen, and there.
It's in the air.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
Anyway, it's something I guess you completely didn't figure out at all.
I had no idea. That's so weird. I don't think the airship is there the first time you go to that town. Is that right?
I'm not sure. It may be after you've defeated a certain amount of the bosses,
right.
but yeah, it's there, and I managed to upgrade my armor to have a red armor, which in turn reduces the amount of gold you lose when you die. So it halves the amount of gold you lose when you die. Which is really useful, and it's the one that I kind of ran with for most of the game. So yeah, I guess that's something that you just completely passed by, Bally, which I'm surprised by, because it helped me a lot. It really aided me a good deal.
It is a relatively short game, so I do think some point, maybe next year, I'm gonna play through it again, because I really did enjoy it.
And there's certainly precedent to do that, because there is the New Game Plus mode, which
Yeah.
you can copy over your save file and start it again in New Game Plus. And I did actually play through a little bit. I played through the first level, and really the only difference I could tell is that you're taking double damage. So instead of taking a half point of a dot, you're going to take a full point. But the nice thing about it is you carry over all of your weaponry, all of your gold, everything will just move over to the next file. So you have your full life bar and all that stuff. So makes things easier.
What did you think of the weapons on the subject?
Yeah, I thought they were really cool. They were all easy to miss because they're in hidden areas throughout the levels. So if you don't go,
I missed most of them.
Yeah, if you don't go out of your way to really explore and check out these hard to get to places, then most of the time you're not going to come across those weapons. And I say weapons, but a lot of the time they're items. They're kind of unique things. So one of them is called a phase locket, and it will temporarily allow you to avoid taking damage. Something which I used really frequently throughout the game, especially for some of the boss fights where it was hard to dodge some of those moves and I couldn't predict them. I would just spam the phase locket a bunch, and it really aided me in that way. But it's also good for like getting across spikes and stuff like that. And there's the propeller dagger, which gives you faster movement speed, I guess, and also allows you to like dash through the air. So loads of unique, interesting weapons, and they weren't like Zelda necessarily tied to a boss or needed to be used on specific enemies.
Oh yeah, they were entirely optional.
Yeah, they're entirely optional, and there's a lot of the overworld as well had some unique optional areas which you actually were required to have some of the items that you got in the dungeons for those, and those are really cool as well because they did really feel like platforming challenges as opposed to going through and just bashing enemies on the head. They were really finding unique ways of using those items. Which I really appreciated, for sure.
My favorite item that I used on most of the bosses was the bouncing green orbs.
Oh, really? I actually never used those at all.
Really? I just thought, because you can fire like 2 of them at once, and it felt like even if you miss the boss on your first sort of throw of it, it rebounds off the wall and can sometimes hit them on the way back.
Interesting.
And then if you release it from a great height, it does get a good bounce. So you're covering like quite a lot of area. So I found those quite useful, and also I used the invincibility. What did you call it?
Phase locket.
The phase locket. God, you and names, like I'm just horrendous.
Yes, Bally,
at
you are
names
terrible.
when it comes to these.
No.
What's that Kirby game coming out next year?
I don't know, man. Let's not dwell on the subject. Anyway. It's interesting you do mention the green ball because that is one of the few ranged options you have in the game. Obviously, Shovel Knight being a melee-based character, he only has the kind of get up close in their grill and smack them in the face with his main weapon. For me, the ranged option that worked the best was the flare wand, which is just a straight up, basically the fire rod, and you can just throw some fireballs in front of you. And that was the thing I really relied on the most in terms of trying to get distance on enemies. So yeah, I guess we both had kind of different play styles, I would say, and Shovel Knight does accommodate that certainly.
I seem to have missed half the game. As well.
Yeah, I don't know how. You have, Bally. It's crazy.
Oh, God.
So yeah, I think we've covered a lot here about Shovel Knight.
Definitely a Game of the Year contender.
Certainly. Before we close out, should we talk about the unique features to each version of the game?
I don't even know what
are there unique features? That's the thing I'm kind of wondering. Are there unique features to the Wii U version? Is there anything that was different for you? I guess for me, I would say probably for the Wii U version, I don't know. I thought it was just maybe shinier graphics on the TV, right? I
didn't have it on the TV, but I have nothing to compare it to, but it did look great on the gamepad. I'd also say one issue I did have was that when you're starting up the game, you're briefly given the option to tap the touchscreen and then get the game down onto the gamepad. But there were a couple of times I'd start up the game and miss that screen, and then I couldn't work out any other way of getting the game onto the bottom screen, onto the gamepad, sorry. So that was one tiny little gripe, but
it's more to do with you not having a TV than anything else, I guess.
Yeah, and it's partly because I'm asleep, just hitting the B button which is the A button in this game, which is a little weird in and of itself.
Yeah,
but,
well, you can customize the controls. I changed things up to use
Yeah.
the A button to jump because that's the thing that makes
So-
most sense to me.
Yeah, it was my own
Yeah.
fault for just trying to skip.
Yeah, I
ahead.
guess the Wii U version is really off-TV play is a big draw, and I guess just the game looking nicer in HD. I guess. For the 3DS version, obviously I can take it wherever I want, but there is also the 3D effect,
3D.
which I thought was really cool. I really like it, and it's something I want to see a lot more in these 2D platformers, because the idea of the parallax scrolling and layers in the foreground and the background just really appeals to me. I feel like it makes the art stand out a lot more and gives a lot more life to the games and the visuals. So it's something that I can certainly get behind quite a bit. I'm a fan. I'm a fan of 3D, as you know. We're both fans of 3D, and I think it's a really neat addition. The other thing the 3DS version has is the Street Pass Arena.
Oh, really?
Which unfortunately is something I've not been able to test out yet. I'm not quite sure what it entails. I think you maybe go up against other Shovel Knights who you pass in the street, people who've been playing the game. Yeah, and I haven't passed anyone yet who's been playing Shovel Knight, so I guess that may happen in the coming days or weeks, and I guess I can report back on it. But yeah, that's a feature that's there. Not sure how it works, but we'll maybe see at some point.
Do you think there's any chance of a sequel?
Well, that's an interesting question. I certainly think...
Have Yacht Club Games said anything about anything?
Well, I certainly think that at the moment their focus is just getting this one fully out the door. And the reason I say that is there's a lot of things that they promised from the Kickstarter that haven't been implemented yet. And, they said that they wanted to get the game out first and they'd do a lot of the other stuff later. I was actually having a look at their stretch goals, and some of them are like a playable boss knights. So there are going to be 3 playable of the boss characters that you'll be able to start using through the game at some point in time. They're probably working on that. There's supposed to be a challenge mode that's coming. There's supposed to be a 4-player battle mode. There's a bunch of stuff post-release that they still have to add to the game. So certainly for the time being, I think that they are going to stick with development on Shovel Knight.
Is that going to be paid content?
No,
or do
that's
you think
all
it's
going to be free. That's going to be just free content
great.
that's going to be updated whenever it's done. So certainly their efforts will be focused on finishing up this game. But, after the success and after the, critical acclaim, and everyone just absolutely adores this game, I have no trouble seeing a sequel in the next 3-4 years. No doubt that will happen. And maybe they'll do another Kickstarter because it seemed to be pretty successful. And I think a lot of people, after the success of this one, have a lot more faith in supporting these guys. So yeah, most certainly.
Excellent.
So
Absolutely
yeah, that is really the most of what we've been playing. Bally, you have been digging into Assassin's Creed
I've
as
been well. Dabbling in Assassin's Creed 4
Yeah.
and a little bit of Super Mario World, but both of those will be talked about in the future.
Certainly.
I'll save them up for
Yeah, and I also managed to finish off Bayonetta 2. I don't have much more to say about it other than it ramps up ridiculously, and I'm going to have a hard time choosing my game of the year, Bally. After the knockout punches of Bayonetta 2 and Shovel Knight, it has really thrown things into perspective. So that's something we're going to come to, obviously, at the end of the year. But for now, that is it. Thank you very much for listening to us talk about this game. We hope you will go out and try it for yourself, because it is pretty fantastic. And we're going to segue into our next segment. So I guess...
emails.
Yeah, emails. So here's a bit of Shovel Knight music for you. We'll see you on the other side. everyone, welcome back to the second half of our show, or should I say the second part of our show? Third, sure. We can be mathematically correct about it if you so wish, Bally.
Might as well not be wrong about it.
Well, sure, alright, fair enough. Well, anyway, we're here for some of your emails, and we've got some good ones here, but you can always send more, and we need some more, my friends, so please send your emails, and send them to the email address, which Bally shall tell you right now.
NYPPQuestions@gmail.com.
Yes, indeed. So keep firing them our way. We love doing this segment, and we hope that you guys will support us in our endeavor. So there we go. Let's kick things off. Bally, you have the first email.
So the first email is from Daniel Bunzelmeyer. Mail time, mail time, mail time, mail time, mail time, mail time. So at this point, introductions are not really necessary. You know me, I know you. Let's dispense with the small talk and get to the mail. Got a bit nervous when you prefaced my email with interesting last time, but it all turned out okay. As I'm becoming a bit of an email stalwart around these parts, rivaling John Lindeman's current Cal Ripken-esque Iron Man streak on RFN, I figure I better keep it up. Now on to my question. I have a question about the games industry as a whole. Maybe I'm looking at this through rose-coloured glasses, but it seems to me that during my childhood and even into my teen years, I'm 24 for reference, information about an upcoming game was kept fairly tight-lipped. There would be teasers, of course, but usually much later in the development cycle and usually much more bare bones than what we see today. I realised that this was due partly to the fact that the internet was less ubiquitous back then, but it seems like companies are announcing these games in many cases really, really early in the development cycle, sometimes even before. And to keep the hype for the game up, they essentially tell you everything that is going into the game before you get it, or in Nintendo's case, because they have nothing else to talk about. I understand that as humans we want to know stuff as early as possible due to our curiosity, and I'm always excited for these games anyway. And I'm definitely not saying that this is a huge problem or anything, but, and maybe I'm alone here, I would love to see the reveal process be much more condensed time-wise, much more teaser-like content-wise, without every detail being revealed. Maybe this is my inner child longing to play video game about which I don't know any details. I would love to hear what you guys think about the matter.
Well, a very, very good question, and something that I guess we've been experiencing quite recently with Nintendo, especially. But I mean, let's start maybe going back to how things have changed in terms of the industry and how they reveal stuff, because most certainly back in the day there was less of a known quantity around new video games coming out. The only real way to find information was via magazines, and the best you could do was screenshots. There was no real video content happening pre-internet, and so undoubtedly a game like Ocarina of Time was going to blow people's minds even more so, because people literally didn't know that much about it. And I do feel that it really is a case of the time we live in, and how things have changed is the reason that this has really become much more to the forefront of revealing stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I think a really big factor is, you're right, the difference between screenshots and videos. And you're right, back when we were younger, it was a case of a magazine. It would give some written word about a game and provide you with a nice screenshot, and you were left to fill in all the gaps, how that would play, and sometimes there would be a series of screenshots, but even still, it was nothing like the same impact of actually playing the game. And now, just watching a video on YouTube, there's still a difference between watching a video on YouTube and playing games. Well, actually now there isn't, because it now plays at 60 frames per second on YouTube. But there's still a difference between watching videos of video games and actually playing video games, and I feel like that gap has just minimized entirely. So I feel like as a result, games companies like Nintendo, they feel more and more pressured to show you more and more video content of the gameplay content of the game in order to keep you interested. And it is a shame, because it does spoil an awful lot of what is in the final game. You talked about on the show, NBZ 3D World, which was a very hyped game for Nintendo last year, and they showed a relatively lackluster trailer at E3.
Yeah, one
Of
which actually kind of
2013.
provided the opposite effect for me,
Exactly.
where I was like, well, that looks kind of boring. I'm not that interested.
And then they did an absolute blowout trailer in autumn, which showed so many levels, so many more intricacies, so many more enemies, power-ups, stuff like that. And by the time you played the game, you felt that you hadn't experienced many levels that were new to you. So stuff
Right,
like
and they even went so far as to reveal a secret character that you wouldn't have found out unless you'd played the game, but they tell you. It's like, why? What is there a reason for that? Is the fact that this character in the game going to sell any more copies of it? I certainly don't think so, based on the character who it was, but, you know, it seemed kind of crazy. And I think I really want to get to talking about, you know, how marketing and hype bleeds into a lot of this, because these days video games are so much larger and so much bigger industry than they were back in the day, and they have to sell more copies. They're getting more expensive, and as a result, you know, companies do want to market the shit out of their games and hype them up and build them up. And you know, there are no better examples than, you know, Ubisoft, who provide trailers literally every week for games up to their release. I hear so much about the guys over at Giant Bomb and how they say Ubisoft sends press releases literally on a weekly basis with new trailers and new footage and new information, and they just basically dole it out over time to the point at which you get to the game and it's like, well, we pretty much know everything. It's slightly ridiculous, I do feel.
And you had this criticism I was making about the new Captain Toad game that's coming out, that the most recent trailer well, maybe we can talk a bit about it in the next segment, but
Right.
God, did it give away a lot, and like I just avoided it entirely as a result.
Yeah, and it's really weird. It's like, here's this game, you know, it's not necessarily filled with content comparative to maybe something like 3D World, but, you know, there's like 70 levels or something. We don't know if there's going to be more, or that we might do, because I think the game's out in Japan at this point. But they're like, oh, here's 70 levels. Let's show you a bit from every level. And I was like, what? Why? Stop! Why are you doing this? The game isn't out yet. I don't want to see every level, because that's, you know, that's the whole experience of experiencing the game. So I just averted my eyes and didn't watch it for that part. But I was like, what the? Why would you do that?
And like
Yeah.
with Mario, half of the fun that I find is the quirky new ideas and the quirky new ideas they make in that world of the Mushroom Kingdom, or wherever Captain Toad is set, is broadly speaking in the Mushroom Kingdom. So it's these quirky ideas that Nintendo are so proud of that they spoil them months before the game is even out. It's quite frustrating, and it's something that they never used to do as much, I feel like. And I really hope they don't go down the same route with future titles such as Zelda Wii U. I think they have to, this E3, I think they have to treat that game so carefully, because I think spoilers in Zelda are perhaps the worst, because the process of going through a dungeon without knowing what awaits you, whether that's the puzzles or the final boss or something like that, that's what makes Zelda such a strong game. And that's why I really enjoyed Link's Awakening the last few weeks. I didn't really know anything about the game. I played through it, experienced the bosses for the first time, and it really made it more enjoyable as a result. And like, I'm really scared for the future of Zelda Wii U as a result of that Captain Toad trailer.
Yeah. I mean, this is the thing, and he does make mention of it, Daniel Bunselmeyer, in this email, of, is this happening because Nintendo has a lack of other things to talk about, and so as a result, the few projects that they are working on, they go full blowout mode into? Do you think that's a logical step to make?
Um, yes, and I think they are kind of trying to counter that with really quirky little stuff like the Pikmin 3 videos. Like, they were so random and quirky and new, and you can't really spoil them in the same way. I mean, there was a little trailer to suggest what you're getting, that's nice sort of filler content for those directs that ties in nicely with the big release titles. But I think the Captain Toad trailer would have been absolutely fine had they not if it had been really really fast cuts, I think really quick cuts, it was just too, how do I describe it? It just covered too much of the game, it felt like.
Yeah. And I really don't see how that benefits Nintendo. You know, the people who are interested in this game know what they're getting because they've played these levels in 3D World, and the people who aren't, well, I don't think showing them every level in the game is going to get them any more interested. So it does come to this, you know, crossroads where it's like, why? It's lack of logic, I feel, on their part. But yeah, it's I don't know. It is, of course. It's just a case of the times and the place we live in and everything. And yeah, I guess that pretty much wraps that up.
So Sullivan has a slightly different question. Hello, NBZ and Bally. My name is Sullivan, and since I really don't want you guys to die of a tragic lack of email-related death, I wanted to send something in. My question for you guys is not about games, but what are some of your favorite bands? Thank you for your time.
Well, certainly, thank you for not letting us loose into the horrible world of no emails. That would be terrible. But yeah, Bally and I both like a lot of bands. We love our music. We haven't listened to as much music in recent years because we are podcast fanatics at this point in time. But we got some favorite bands. Bally, how about you? List off a couple of yours?
Maybe we could talk a bit about like some of the concerts that we've been to, and like we've been to quite a few together as well. So
yeah,
a band that we both greatly love, maybe apart from their most recent albums.
Yeah.
But we actually went to their biggest concert of all time.
Yeah.
And that would be Green Day. We both saw them in 2010.
Oh, it might have been 2011, but no,
Maybe
it was
2011.
2010. It was 2010. Yeah, it was 2010.
So we saw them at Wembley Stadium, and yeah, that was a great event. Some other bands that we're into, I really like Nirvana, Muse, Weezer. I used to absolutely love the White Stripes.
Yeah.
I've seen all of these bands live, apart from Nirvana, the White Stripes. I've seen Blink live. Who else do I like? Oh, this is fun. We both love Alter Bridge.
Oh, Alter Bridge are one of my all-time favorites. They are fantastic.
I
Absolutely.
love, in terms of older bands, I really like Queen. They're probably my favorite old band.
Yeah, definitely.
And
Yeah,
I don't just like their greatest hits. I've got lots of the albums and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So I really got into them. But yeah, like you were saying, MBZ, I've been listening to way too many podcasts the last couple of years and had hardly any time to listen to music. But it's something that I should probably get back into, and especially with
Yeah.
all my running and stuff like that. Music's always good.
It is great, yeah. I mean, for me, like a lot of the similar ones to Bally, but I'm a huge fan of Paramore. Although their recent album wasn't something that I particularly enjoyed as much as their old stuff. I'm still sticking with them, and you know they do great stuff. Panic at the Disco is a weird one for me that I loved back in the day, and I still really love those original albums. But their fourth one that just came out is just kind of garbage, and I really don't like it whatsoever. So that's put a dampener in it for me. I'm also like a big fan of like Fall Out Boy and stuff like that, and more like just, I guess like pop punky
We
alternative.
both love a bit of pop punk. Like that is an area
Yeah.
that we really overlap on, and we've both recently really got into like, shall we say it?
No, no.
Shall we say? But okay, maybe that's for another time. You have to send us another email asking
write
what
in,
band we mean. Yeah, but it's
Yeah,
quite
yeah.
embarrassing. But we're really
Yeah.
keen to try and see them. I've actually have seen them at Leeds Fest, but that was a long time ago before I really liked them at all. But anyway.
Yeah. So there you go. That's some of our favorite bands. I hope that gave us a little bit more chance to show you what kind of people we are.
What kind of well-rounded, knowledgeable people we are, yes.
Totally.
So the next question is from Bruno Garcia. Hello, NBZ and Bally. I'm writing once again from San Diego, California, and wanted to say I really enjoy the show. Last week you answered a question regarding your Nintendo backlogs. So now I ask you, what are your top 3 backlog games from any console? Since Bally only plays Nintendo games, if you could have any other consoles, what 3 games would you like to try out? Thanks for your time and keep up the great work. P.S. As an RFN listener as well, I can say I enjoy your podcast a bit more. Well, that is a compliment, you know, to think we're a bit better than RFN would be a feather in our cap.
I hope that we will continue to give that impression, because that's a great compliment. So thanks, Bruno. Bally, this question definitely seems geared towards you. As you said, you know, you don't own consoles aside from Nintendo ones, and there are some series that you're interested in playing but don't have the ability to. I have, and generally can play any video game that ever existed, so it's less difficult for me. But what are some of your picks here, Bally?
I'd say my top 3 series that I'd love to give a go would be Uncharted.
Yeah.
I think that it's a really well-renowned series that loads of people love and play. How many games in the series? There's now three in the PSP version.
The Vita version, yeah.
PSP, Vita, yeah. Vita version. I'd also love to play Halo.
It's interesting that you'd go there.
Just because I'd like to get into a first-person shooter that wasn't just COD, or like something that was in an alien environment or planet or something like that. So something like Halo,
considering how much you enjoyed Metroid Prime, it makes sense.
Yeah,
and actually for Halo 4, there are a lot of the people who did work on the Metroid Prime series actually joined the team.
Really?
Yeah.
And that's because Bungie aren't doing Halo 4, are they?
Right. Yeah. It's 343 who Microsoft owned studio.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I'll get an Xbox One day. But,
yeah.
And then the third series. It's not really a series, just my inability. There's so many cool little Steam games that I'd love to be able to play. And obviously the biggest, best ones often come to Wii U or other systems. So like Shovel Knight or the Swapper, for example. But there's still plenty that I'm sure you know about and have talked about on this podcast that are
one
really
that's a
great.
real egregious thing that's left out from Nintendo consoles is Super Meat Boy. And there was a time at which Super Meat Boy was going to come to a Nintendo platform. It was being developed for the Wii, but of course, due to Nintendo's policies and their limits with the data and all that stuff, it never ended up happening, which was really unfortunate. And that's a great loss, that one, and certainly one that I know you'd enjoy. So,
yeah. So, I mean, these are games that I will probably. I don't want to say never own the systems in order to play them, but it would be difficult for me to play these series, put it that way. And ultimately, I mean, the games I'm playing, I think I can't say for 100%, but I do enjoy them an awful lot, and I don't really have any intention of trying to expand my gaming catalog.
Yeah,
in
totally.
that way. But
Sure.
What would be some of yours?
Well, I guess for me, the only systems that are out of my reach are the Microsoft platforms. Generally, a lot of Microsoft games end up coming to PC, but things like Gears of War, I've never tried and probably would have an opportunity to. And the interesting thing about Gears is how it really innovated on the third-person cover-based shooter, and that was really the first time that was a big deal and really pushed things forward. So just from an intellectual curiosity perspective and from a historical perspective, I'd like to play a Gears game and kind of see what the hype is about, because I don't really see it from my current perspective. And then in the case of the next-gen consoles, at the moment there's nothing like stand outish, but for me, as someone who's a huge fan of Infamous, I really do want to play Second Son. That's on my.
I was going to say I would
playlist.
probably put Infamous if I could have a top 4 if possible. That would be in that series does seem pretty cool.
Yeah, Infamous 1 and 2 are great games. I really, really enjoyed those. And Second Son, I didn't get the most positive reviews, but they were pretty decent all around. And as someone who's a fan of that gameplay, I'm totally down to play that. And then very recently, of course, Sunset Overdrive on Xbox One, which I don't have the ability to play. Although that one does seem like it may come to PC at some point. It is currently a console exclusive, but console exclusivity rarely lasts that long these days, as you can see by things like Rise and Dead Rising 3, both of which were exclusive Xbox One launch titles, have both come out on PC this year, and I am pretty confident that Sunset Overdrive will reach the PC shores come 2015. So maybe I will play it at that point. But yeah, those are some of mine. So there you go.
And for our final question this week is from Andrew. Hey fellas, just started listening from episode 25. Came across it looking for more podcasts devoted to Nintendo or Smash Brothers talk. Great job, I've subscribed. Now onto my problem. My backlog is starting to pile up and I was hoping you guys could let me know what game to play next. My idea was to get the games with Smash characters in, so I've finished Pikmin 3, Tropical Freeze and 3D World. And I'm working through Fire Emblem Awakening and Mario Kart 8. But out of Earthbound, Skyward Sword, Xenoblade Chronicles, Luigi's Mansion 2, and Kid Icarus Uprising, what should I take on next and what should I tackle last? I've pre-ordered Bayonetta 1 and 2, but won't take it out of the shrink wrap until I've finished those games. Thanks. Sorry if it's long. Andrew from Essex, in brackets, not a chav.
All right, great stuff, Andrew. Thanks for the email. I actually have a family in Essex, so maybe I will see you around those parts at some point. Yeah, this is an interesting question. Those games that he mentioned, a lot of them are really big and long. And if he wants to get around to playing Bayonetta 1 and 2, it may not be for the next, 7-8 months or so, considering he has both Skyward Sword and Xenoblade on the list. Bally, where would you think he should start with this?
Out of those games, I think the best game, or certainly the one that I've played, it's probably Skyward Sword. I think if you're a fan of Zelda, I think Skyward Sword is a really unique take on Zelda. It feels very different to the other games, and while I have some criticisms at the game, I think that the sword combat, while I admit I'm not very good at it, I think is implemented incredibly well. And there are some battles, fights with enemies feel like genuine battles rather than just...
They feel like puzzles, really.
Exactly. Honestly, it's not just swan into a room, slaughter the room, and move on. You do have to work at it to defeat certain enemies, and I really like that about the game.
But would you recommend he tackles that one first, is the real question.
Yeah, because it's the best, in my opinion, out of those games that I've played.
Interesting.
So why not do the best first?
Cool. Well, see, the tact I would take is when you're going to try and tackle a big list of games, you want to start off easy for yourself and you want to get through a game quickly to give you some momentum. And so for those reasons, I would go with Luigi's Mansion 2. I think that is, it's not the shortest game, but it is definitely, hovering around the 8 to 10 hour range, and maybe a bit longer than that. But it is certainly a really fantastic entry in the 3DS's catalog, and it will get you well underway to tackle some of these other games. So that's why I would say that. In terms of tackling last, man, I think that you should save Xenoblade for last, unless you are really
save it for your second life.
Or, alternatively, you could try and take on Xenoblade early if you want to beat it in time for the sequel. But given the amount of backlog games you already have, I'm not sure if you'll be getting the sequel anytime soon. But yeah, Xenoblade is perhaps my favorite game I've played this entire year. So I am a big proponent of it. I think that you should play it, but whether it goes last or not depends.
Xenoblade is good for being that sort of second game that you could play alongside another game. For example, I'm playing a very long game right now. Nothing like as long as Xenoblade. I'm never going to try and make that argument, but I'm playing Assassin's Creed 4 right now, and it's taking me a really long time. And it's a really nice game to just dip in and out of alongside playing another game. I don't know if Xenoblade, in your opinion, would fit that mold in the same way, NBZ, but maybe Andrew could play two games at the same time, and Xenoblade might be a good one to just sort of have constantly going to get it played.
Yeah, I mean, I did that for quite a while. I had Xenoblade as kind of a thing that I was working through over the months and the years, literal years. Uh, but but yeah, it is. It's a game you want to get to. Don't leave it and finish the other games. Certainly do get Xenoblade done because you will be you'll be better for it. It's incredible, incredible. So yes, I would say that. As for the others, Earthbound, neither of us have really any experience with it. So
It's
you
not
can
on
play
my.
that.
It's not top of my list of things to do, unfortunately.
But I do want to get to it someday. Certainly want to get to it someday. But yeah, and
I
then
think it's screaming
Kingdom
for a sale on the eShop one day.
it'll get there maybe, but I don't know. Nintendo know that people who buy Earthbound will pay money, so we'll see about that. But yeah, good luck with that. I hope you get through those games because they are all fantastic. So yeah, good luck. And I think that's it. That is probably going to close our email segment. So thank you very much for sending them in. As I said at the top of the segment, we would like some more of those, so you can send them in to our email address, which Bally will regale for you.
NYPPQuestions@gmail.com. And remember to tell us where you're from, because we do enjoy that, and some of you are forgetting to do that. Very important bit of information.
Jeez, Bally scolding our audience. Why?
Naughty.
All right. Well, we are going to take a real quick break, but we will be back on the other side to tackle the latest Nintendo Direct news. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Alright everyone, welcome back to the third and final part of the show, and this week we are going to be digging deep into some analysis and opinions on the recent Nintendo Direct. It happened maybe a week and a half ago at this point, and there was some cool stuff announced. Nothing kind of game-changing or ridiculously over the top, but a lot of neat little things and some good stuff to dig into. So we are going to we'll go through it. We're going to go through it on a platform basis, start with Wii U, move to 3DS, and then pick up some other stuff at the end. And thanks to Light Agent on NeoGAF for putting together a breakdown of it so that we can easily go through. So Bally, how about we kick things off with the Mario Kart 8 DLC, which got a release date, which was the 13th of November, and it is past the 13th of November at this point. And I have played the Mario Kart DLC. You have not.
I haven't, I'm afraid. No. Yeah, I left my Mario Kart 8 disc in Edinburgh when I moved down to London, so I'm getting it sent down to me, and it's not here yet, but I should have it in the next few days.
Yeah, and hopefully you'll be better by then. If
Yes,
you didn't notice, Bally has contracted a horrible disease during the break. If you couldn't imagine, a 30-second Shovel Knight tune would put him into such a state. Well,
Who would have thought a 30-second tune could have wrecked my voice this much? Like,
Yeah.
It is ridiculous. But yeah.
Well, I have played the Mario Kart 8 DLC, and it is really, really good. I think it is a super well-polished product, and, you know, you wouldn't really expect any less from Nintendo, but they have really shown up the industry, I feel, in the way that they've delivered this DLC. It was, you know, pitched extremely well, and you know it's priced at such a reasonable rate, and it just makes so much sense and is is really well done across the board. It's pretty great.
It's like you could say, although I've not played it, but would you say there's anything more Nintendo could have possibly done to this DLC to make it better?
I perhaps would have liked some more nuances and intricacies in like the Zelda track, for example. Like the tracks are great and they're a lot of fun, but some of them aren't like the best. Like the Zelda one's cool, but it doesn't have the kind of level of fan service and stuff there that I was maybe looking for. It's very simple because it's based around Hyrule Castle and stuff like that. But
do you think? Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying that in the future they could potentially have another Zelda track that's more interesting and goes crazy. Imagine like going from Skyloft and flying through the sky and down to Earth and through the Skyward Sword stuff, and it would make sense because the art style they went with for Link in Mario Kart is very much based on the Skyward Sword art, although he's a little bit smaller and chibi to fit in with the world.
Chippy. Do you think that the F-Zero track was the best sort of fan service?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, the F-Zero track is fantastic. It really does kind of get people up in arms about the fact that there is no new F-Zero and that look what you could do. Right, like look what you could do with this system. The track looks gorgeous and it just runs so well and smoothly and the boost pads are placed in such a perfect sequence that you're never letting off the brakes. It is a full throttle speed adrenaline rush and it's pretty great. I've enjoyed it really, 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 really much. Despite the fact that I wasn't the biggest fan of Mario Kart 8 when it came out, I'm enjoying it.
And there's even more coming in May.
Right, and that's the great thing. Like the discount on this stuff is really, it makes sense. It makes sense. If you don't do it, you're not doing it right. So, anyway, next thing up, Amiibo. So we have some more details on stuff that Amiibo is going to be working with. It's going to be working with Mario Kart 8 to do some costumes. Any thoughts on that, Bally?
They're really cool, but it's just like basically really expensive DLC almost. And obviously these Amiibos, say Captain Falcon for example, will have many other uses and hopefully makes up I think they're £12 in the United Kingdom.
Somewhere
so
around there.
Hopefully they do enough different things to make up that price gap, but purely for Mario Kart costumes it's not really worth it. But it's nice that they're there. It's a cool little twist, and the Captain Falcon outfit looks amazing.
It looks the best, no doubt about that. It really just it's like Nintendo just giving us these tiny little pieces of like, hey, there's Nintendo Land with the F-Zero game, and now this, and it just seems like they're hinting towards something. And I feel like maybe E3 next year could be a tipping point. But
I hope so.
We'll see. Keeping on this topic of Amiibo, some upcoming games are going to be working with it. Captain Toad, who at this point there isn't even a Captain Toad Amiibo announced yet. Like there isn't actually him because he's not in Smash Brothers or anything, so he's not actually part of the lineup so far. So I don't know how that's going to work. Maybe more costumes there. We've got Kirby, Yoshi, and Mario Party 10. They're all going to be working with it, and those are all 2015 releases. But interested to see how it works out. It'll probably be something quite simple, like what they've done with Mario Kart. And they're also doing a thing with Hyrule Warriors because that's another game that came out and has a character from Smash Brothers in it, or multiple characters actually. So if you add Link to Hyrule Warriors, you get the spinner from Twilight Princess as a weapon, which is pretty cool.
And neat. Then they said that basically if you put any other amiibo on in Hyrule Warriors, that you get some other random item there. I mean, those other random items I think are already in the game. But
yeah, they're already in the game, so it's like kind of a fuck you, but at least it's
like
something. I don't know.
Link elitism slightly, but that's alright. I mean, it is Hyrule Warriors.
Sure, and they did actually say that Toon Link and Sheik, who are going to be part of one of the 2015 waves of Amiibo, are going to work with Hyrule Warriors, so they'll probably have something more significant to offer. Imagine if they actually add Toon Link as a playable character. That would be pretty neat. for Hyrule Warriors?
I'd be quite upset.
What, sullying the good name of Toon Link?
Exactly. Like I think he's proudly standing to the side of Hyrule Warriors right now.
Just like you. All right.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we got some more news about the upcoming Nintendo online shooter Splatoon, which both of us are really excited for. I think a really exciting prospect, and they essentially have announced that there is going to be a single-player mode, and they showed off a really awesome trailer. I thought that was a fantastic kind of look at what could potentially happen with a single-player campaign.
Yeah, they're going for like this. It feels like there's a whole story behind it and stuff with the squids versus the octopuses.
Sure.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see what they go for, because the world creation is really unusual, and it's obviously covered in ink and octopus mess and whatever. And
yeah, and I just feel this game is
crazy.
so creative. To me, it feels like the level of creativity that the EAD Tokyo team were on when they were creating Galaxy and Galaxy 2. Like, the stuff that was shown in the trailer, like, there's only little snippets, but from what we saw, I do feel that this is like, fresh young blood. They have said it's a much younger team working on it, and they are just brimming with ideas, and I'm really excited to see how that turns out.
I mean, this was already a day one purchase for me, but that new trailer just showed so much intricate, unique stuff that it was just fantastic to see that they've properly put in some time into the single player mode.
Yeah. It's good, because I actually do generally prefer a single player campaign. Both of us do. So it's nice that that's there. So next up for Wii U, we had a new trailer for one of my most anticipated games, Xenoblade Chronicles X. Nothing too much new, to be honest. Just a bit more about going to be using the city of New Los Angeles as your home base, and you're going to be going questing and all that good stuff. Actually, some really neat stuff with the gamepad was shown, where you can use it to navigate the world, and a lot of the UI is brought down there, which I think could be really fantastic, because getting rid of the clutter on the screen allows you to just experience the visuals of that game, and I know it's going to be huge, and it's going to be grand and epic, and that kind of lends to the whole thing. So yeah, I'm really excited. And they also showed with the gamepad, like, scanning over the environments, and I think that they're going to do some pretty cool stuff with it, honestly. So that is coming next year, and yeah, hyped for it. Next up, we have Kirby and the Rainbow Paintbrush, which is the European name, which I...
Oh god, this is just going to confuse me more, for God's sake.
It is, yeah, it is. You're going to be going to the store, and you're going to be like, can I have the Kirby and the... Oh, damn, I forgot again! And the guy will just be like, well, I'm sorry, here's Kirby Triple Deluxe. This is the one. And you're like, yeah, alright, I'll get that. Yeah. Anyway, new stuff for this. Actually, I completely forgot that this was actually shown, but there is actually a co-op multiplayer mode, which seems really awesome. I'm actually very excited by that, because I know both of us are going to be getting this, and I think that doing the local co-op is going to be great. No, and the reason I say that is because one player is going to be playing as Kirby, and the other will be playing as Waddle Dee, and those characters are obviously doing completely different things. Kirby on the touchscreen using the paintbrush, and Waddle Dee can assist, and the person can actually look at the big screen and get the gorgeous visuals of the game. So at least someone's benefiting from the TV being there, So
yeah, I mean that is one up. You're right. I just thought it looked a bit predictable, maybe. I don't.
It is. I mean, these days Nintendo do add multiplayer or co-op, should I say, into all their 2D platformers. But for this one, I think it actually will make quite a difference because of the asymmetrical nature of it. One player is doing a completely different thing to another. So it's two different experiences.
I'm just worried it won't work out in the same way. I don't think multiplayer in New Super Mario Bros. Is that great, or we tried a bit of Tropical Freeze co-op multiplayer, and
you don't want to do that.
I mean, maybe that's a lie. Maybe, to be fair, I think New Super Mario Bros. Works okay with maybe 2 players, but once you're at 3 or 4, it just becomes a bit of a clusterfuck. And yeah, I do worry that that's what this game could turn into, and
it could. But I do think that the pace of Kirby games and the way they're structured means that it lends to maybe a more easy experience with multiple people.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll see. We're definitely going to try it, no matter what.
Oh, yeah. I'm more excited for the single player, but yeah.
Yeah. Next up, Nintendo decided to spoil us, as we've already talked about in our previous
Oh
segment
god.
with Captain Toad Treasure Tracker. They actually brought the release date forward for this one. It's now the 2nd of January, so pretty close for the end of the year there, or the start of next year. Still a month behind the US release, but they showed snippets of every single stage, and it was stupid. It was stupid.
At least they brought it forward, and it's really great. Maybe we've not mentioned this before, but I'm sure I read this somewhere that it's not full price at all. Like it's
No, it's not. And in the US, I think it's $40, which means we can probably grab it on Amazon for around 25, maybe less than that. So yeah,
it
certainly
might be
looking
another
forward
one
to
of
it.
those scenarios where the eShop might slightly undercut Amazon. We'll see.
It may be. It may be. We'll have to see. It could be an interesting one there. And finally, we have an announcement for the Duck Hunt original game coming to Virtual Console. Of course, back in the day, this would have been hard for Nintendo to do because they could have done it, but it requires more effort, and they're doing it now on Wii U Virtual Console because the original NES game had the Zapper. And the Zapper was what you used to shoot ducks out of the
So
sky.
how are we gonna play it then? I don't get it.
Well, Bally, there is this magical invention that Nintendo created back in the day. It's called the Wii Remote. And
Did they announce
funnily
that?
enough, yes, they did. So that's exactly how it's going
Uh,
to work. The Wii Remote is going to be used as the Zapper. And it looks like they have built the game from scratch. Duck Hunt is going to be using that. And yeah, it looks really cool. I've never played Duck Hunt, and it's one of those games that's really important in Nintendo history. So maybe I will grab it at some point on sale or something like that. It does seem like a neat thing to try out, especially that they've gone the extra mile here and actually coded in the Wii Remote compatibility. So seems neat.
it's so nice that they're doing that, and they've obviously brought Duck Hunt Duo back into not back in, but they've made them a character in Smash Brothers, and just sort
Sure.
of that Nintendo nostalgia that is even way before our time. Like to just reinvent that franchise for the modern era. And they've not even announced a new game yet. I mean, maybe
No.
that's the next step, but
Yeah,
it's
maybe.
just really cool that it's all sort of culminated together.
Sure. All right, well, that does it for the Wii U news. Then let's move on to 3DS. They kicked off the presentation with a bang, some might say. Majora's Mask 3D finally announced. This was a long time coming, and apparently they started work on it as soon as Ocarina of Time 3D was done, which is kind of interesting because that was a long time ago. It was 2011, sorry, the Ocarina of Time 3D came out. So it's been 3 years, and I feel that means that they are maybe taking some liberties here and changing some stuff.
I hope
I don't
so.
know.
Is it the
Yeah.
same team? Is it Q Games, or did they just
No.
do
It's
Star Fox?
it's Grezzo who did
Grezzo.
the port, who Nintendo basically shipped out to. I'm not sure they've confirmed that yet, but I'm pretty sure it is going to be the same guys because the engine was already there and it was running, so they're probably
Okay,
just
cool.
rolling with those guys. They did a good job first time, so yeah, it is it's coming, and it is one of those Zelda games that I just don't have any interest in playing because I cannot stand the mechanics that it puts in
And
place.
that's the sort of hope I guess both of us would share, is that I really hope that they do change those mechanics for this game and make it more playable and less of
Yeah, but
a
like to some degree,
standby.
that's almost impossible to do because the entire premise of the game is based around that. Like you would have to make a new game at that point, so they can go some steps to make it better, but I'm not sure how far it will really go. Um, but yeah, I know a lot of people are really excited about that, so it's going to make people happy. So it's a good job that it's there. And there's also a really nice special edition coming out in Europe, which I don't believe the US gets, but it's going to be spring 2015. So at least 3DS has something coming up at the start of the year, which I don't think it really had before.
Yeah, that's
So
really soon. That's good. Quick
yeah,
turnaround.
definitely. So next up, we have a bit more information on Codename Steam. Which was obviously announced at E3, and this is kind of the secret 3DS roundtable that happened, in which the greatest NeoGAF backpedaling ever of all time happened when the screenshots came out and everyone realized, wow, that looks like a DS game, and like an early DS game. Like visually,
Yeah.
it wasn't something that was super crazy. But I'm still interested in Codename Steam. I think it's a really fascinating concept, and I do like to support intelligent systems because I know they just do fantastic work, and I've enjoyed everything they've done in the past. So I'm totally down with it. Sorry, yeah, I know. I've enjoyed playing Advance Wars with you. I've told you, but I will get to it at some point. But
Awesome.
Codename Steam. Any interest here, Bally? Are you going to wait for reviews, or what do you think is going to be your kind
yeah,
of, take on
it's a long
Codename
way
Steam?
off a day one purchase for me. I need to see some really awesome reviews, and probably would also require you to get it and tell me, Bally, it's so amazing, you have to buy
Yeah,
it,
sure.
like you do with so many games. So
Yeah, true.
I'm really put off by the idea of 3D turn-based strategy. I don't know why, but
Yeah, it's certainly much more complex and different to
it's
what
very
they've done in
different
the
to the
past.
top-down Fire Emblem Advance Wars that I'm used to.
Yeah,
So
yeah, sure. Well, yeah, well, it's coming. It's coming in May 2015, apparently. So that, 3DS lining up a little bit. There will be some gaps at the start of next year, but there are going to be some big releases happening. Then a bit more on Pokemon, which is coming out soon. Next couple of weeks for Europe. It's next week for North America, but nothing too interesting here. I don't really see. I think it was just another trailer. Didn't give too many new details. And then there was an announcement for Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate, which is coming to 3DS in early 2015. So obviously Monster Hunter has its fans. We're not part of that contingent, but they will be pleased to see that's there. They have some Mario and Luigi costumes for some characters. It's Nintendo's thing these days. Like literally any
it's
game.
spreading like wildfire. Those
Yeah,
like getting them into all the games. It's crazy,
yeah, it is. It's pretty
and
crazy.
it's fun. It's nice. I hope that
Sure.
continues.
Sure. Mention of Sonic Boom, which is apparently it's almost coming out, but it's terrible, so let's just not
Uh,
dwell on that. Ultimate NES Remix, which is basically NES Remix 1 and 2 smashed together into a cartridge coming to 3DS. Do you think you'd be interested in getting the 3DS version of this, Bally? Because NES
uh,
Remix is kind of one of those curiosities that I've had for a while, and potentially the
I
3DS version
agree.
with both of them in it could be
I
cool.
it wouldn't be until I got my big new 3DS, basically because I think the Wii U has a far superior D-pad, and I'd love to obviously play that game with a D-pad. So
Sure, yeah, that's
I'm
true.
probably just gonna wait till the first one goes on sale on the
Yeah,
eShop and give it a whirl on the Wii U. I think,
yeah.
but
Although I would say probably NES Remix 2 is the way to go. Judging from the games that are in the second one, it seems like it's a much better selection.
oh, I
If
was going to
if you want
buy
to
the
pick one
first
of them.
one with the intention of probably buying the second one as well
Oh,
after.
okay. Well,
I just
fair
thought it'd
enough.
be nice to play them in order, but
Sure, sure,
yeah.
cool. So yeah, that's coming. And then we have Persona Q, which is it's a kind of the Etrian Odyssey style Persona game that is going to be coming out on 3DS. I know Persona has a huge fan base. A lot of people are going to be interested in that. I've not really jumped into Persona yet. I have still yet to play Persona 4 Golden on Vita, which I know everyone talks about as one of the best RPGs ever, and I really do want to get to that. But it's huge, right? It's like a Xenoblade length game, and I will need to cut out some time to do that. But I will get round to Persona
That's
on
interesting
Vita.
that you're keen on that. I'm just
Well, not
sort
on
of
this game in particular. I'm interested in Persona 4 Golden, which is on Vita. This is Persona
okay.
Q, which is a slightly
I
different
know
take.
like zero about this series.
All you need to know is it's anime Japanese RPG basically, and
Okay.
a lot of people like it. So there you go. And then a couple more things that were announced, which are relevant for both Wii U and 3DS. Shovel Knight was announced that it was coming out on the day, and obviously
This was in Europe.
yeah,
Yeah.
and in Europe because it was already out in America, and there was the discount bargain you could do, and obviously if you bought the 3DS version, you get a nice home theme, which is what I got, and yeah, it's as we've already talked about at length during this episode. Shovel Knight is fantastic. You should go buy it. It is.
Completely wrecked my voice.
Yeah, yeah, completely. And then we had a little bit of an indie highlight reel for some stuff coming to Europe.
We should mention the cool thing that the guy from Yacht Club Games did though with Shovel Knight is that he said thank you for your patience in the same way Iwata says it.
And please understand.
Please understand
and
with regards
directly to
yes,
you.
like with regards to the delay for Europe, which I thought was just a really nice little touch. Like,
Yeah, yeah. Nintendo know their own in-jokes at this point.
Yeah.
They milk them, some might argue, but they certainly are aware of the stuff that happens there. You know, Reggie most of all, but
Yeah.
certainly a lot of their other executives do know that. So yeah, there was the indie game highlight reel, which had a few highlights for me personally. Gunman Clive 2. Oh, I'm excited for that one. The first Gunman Clive is a short but sweet game on 3DS, which I really enjoyed. And I think the second one, from what I've seen in the trailer, turns it up to 11 and just goes crazy. So I am really looking forward to that. And then, of course, there's Azure Striker Gunvolt, which came out in America and has not arrived here yet, which is another one of those games that I've really been interested in. A lot of people were talking about it at the time, so that looks pretty good. Anything from the highlight trailer interest you here, Bally?
No, not particularly. I'm really quite a backseat indie game player, as it were, where I just play what seems to rise to the top or whatever you've told me about. I'm not very
Sure.
good at being the one to go out and play it before anyone else. I'm very lazy when it comes to that.
Yeah, fair enough.
And that's partly because I don't have Steam. But
Yeah.
I know yourself. You're very keen on
I'm on
playing
the
the
button with these.
cutting edge indie games.
Yeah, of course, of course. So yeah, those are looking pretty exciting. Excited for that stuff. And finally, we have the Pikmin short movies. Bally, do you want to talk about these?
I I have a lot of mixed feelings about this. I think it's a really cool idea. It's like a really unexpected sort of here I am, I'm Shigeru Miyamoto, and I'm crazy. Here's another crazy Pikmin thing that I just really want to show all you guys. Like, it's so random. It's like these short movies. It's a bit. It does seem a bit expensive. Like, how much? I can't
It
remember how
was
much
like
it cost.
£5, I think.
£5 for like. I'm just worried that no one will be willing to pay that, and everyone will just watch it online somewhere. But
Yeah.
I mean, for the effort that they've made, I do think I will eventually just one evening give that a download. I mean,
Yeah.
why not, and enjoy it. I mean, I do love the Pikmin world, and
Sure.
obviously loved Pikmin 3, playing it earlier this year, and or was that last year? I can't remember
It
now.
was. I don't know at this
Yeah,
point.
well, time just merges into one. So yeah, I thought it was cool. I mean, were you surprised by it?
Yeah, it was kind of an interesting thing that came up. I was like, oh, that seems neat, but I don't know that I'm willing to go out of my way to pay for it. The current time, you know, maybe they'll have some kind of price drop or something, but I don't know. It seems like very premium content, which means it's probably pretty good. But yeah, it's totally something that I imagine you would download before I would, honestly.
Yeah, and it's nice to know that Pikmin is still on their mind, and
Yeah.
I'm sure eventually in the Wii U life cycle there will probably be another Pikmin 4, perhaps.
Yeah.
Another Pikmin game. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's,
And they also,
it's cool.
out of nowhere, announced a demo for Pikmin 3, which was weird. That's now available on the eShop. So I guess maybe I could go and download the demo for Pikmin 3. Try that out. So, yeah. Well, I think that just about covers everything that was brought up in the Nintendo Direct. Overall thoughts, Bally? How did you feel this Direct went?
It was nice. It was I don't think anyone expected anything absolutely massive for a direct at this time of the year. And considering the time of the year, I think it was really impressive. Majora's Mask is obviously probably the biggest announcement, and then all the other stuff is just kind of little things that are hyping up some of the games like Splatoon, like Kirby for the first half of next year.
Actually, you do mention that, and I completely forgot about this, but we do need to address the elephant in the room, which is Kirby's release date in Europe.
Okay.
Where they said for the US stream, hey, Kirby's coming out in February, and then for the European stream, they said, second half of the year, which to me
God.
is just, why? It's like it doesn't make any sense, right? Like Kirby isn't a game that needs much localization. What is the logic there? But it's already confirmed as February 13th in America, and we have to wait. So that was the dampener. But I think aside from some of the weirder things that happened, yeah, it was good. It was a solid kind of showing, and I feel that maybe we'll get another direct before the end of the year. Maybe like a specific game-focused one, maybe a Captain Toad one or something, because Nintendo fucking love doing that.
It'll probably be like a walkthrough of every stage in Captain Toad or something.
Yeah, pretty much. That's the trajectory they're on at this point, isn't it?
Exactly. The Nintendo's gonna send someone round to your house to play Captain Toad with you. Like that's how much they're exposing this game. Like,
yeah,
ridiculous.
Yeah, definitely. Well, anyway, that was the Nintendo Direct. Direct Retire, and it was a thing. It happened. So that's going to close out our show. So thank you very much for listening, everyone. Of course, as always, you can follow us on our social medias and on the Miiverse. So Bally, how about you go tell people where you can be found?
I can be found on the Twitters at Ballyman91. That's BALLYMAN91. That is also my name on the wonderful, the lovely Miiverse, where I will be posting some hopefully incredible screenshots from Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze.
Excellent.
And probably will be swearing a lot about how difficult this game is going to be because I'm quite nervous because it's going to be tough, although apparently it's slightly easier than Returns, I've heard.
Okay, interesting.
We'll see.
Well, that's good luck with that, Bally. You can of course find me on Twitter. I'm at Lordnbz, and the same for the Miiverse. Posted some of my stats from Shovel Knight if you want to go and see how I did during my run through of the game. You can check those out. And
I conveniently lost mine.
Yeah, very conveniently. Yeah, I forgot to post them, as it were. So you can also email us, and we do need your emails. We need to have them, otherwise we'll die of horrible email-related deaths. So send those in to our email address, which is Bally.
NYPPQuestions@gmail.com in a very low voice.
Yes, indeed. That is pretty much going to close out our show. You can, of course, subscribe to us on iTunes. That's a thing that you can do. It is an easy way of getting the show right to you.
Directly to you.
Directly to you.
Exactly.
And yeah, I think that pretty much sums things up. So we will see you in a couple of weeks' time, hopefully, for some more chat about the latest and greatest in the world of Nintendo. Until then, thank you very much for listening. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.
The musical interludes used in today's show were In the Halls of the Usurper and the main theme from Shovel Knight. Copyright Yacht Club Games 2014.
I'm going to try and not play any Tropical Freeze until I've got my screen, which is this weekend. Hopefully.
Okay, fair enough.
Because it's such a beautiful game. Beautiful.
Beautiful day.
It's a beautiful game. Tropical Freeze. It's a beautiful game.
Yes. I have a leaning tower of coins.
Bananas everywhere.
Oh Well, you're just asking to be in the outtakes at this point.
Cranky. Hit me with your pogo stick. What's going into me?
Oh god. Alright. No.
So dumb.